Suddenly, late on the evening of the 25th, General Franks, who's now motivated by these phone calls that he's been getting, goes forward to the regimental command post, which is somewheres behind us, and he plans an operation for the next day. And his operation, he says, is going to be designed to fix the Republican Guard in place. We, the 2nd Cavalry, are going to fix them and wait, once again, for the rest of the divisions to show up. In the meantime, thousands of Iraqi troops are leaving the theater. We get this new information about the new plan, about 5 in the morning. But what I want to show you is that they plan to take the cavalry regiment on the ground. Each squadron had 1,100 men, so it's almost 4,000 men ultimately. Line them up next to each other, move them just up in front of the enemy and stop. Sit in the security zone in front of the enemy and stop. And wait for the armored divisions behind us to catch up, attack through us, and catch up now with the Republican Guard that we magically, without directly attacking the Republican Guard, are going to fix in place, which incidentally is already leaving. Next one. So, on the 26th of February, we get the new mission. Early in the morning, our morale is at an all-time low. We get the word we're going back into action. People are energized. You can hear the tension over the radio. People know we're going into action. The Republican Guard is out there. That's why we're here. And this is the formation on the left, which was ours. Cougar Squadron, 2nd Squadron, 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, 1,100 men, 42 tanks, 41 Bradleys, 8 howitzers, 6 self-propelled mortars. On the right is the Republican Guard Brigade of the Tawakana Division, one of the 7 Republican Guard divisions. And this brigade is part of a composite unit, and we don't know this at this point, consisting of several brigades from both the Army and the Republican Guard that have been left behind as a rear guard detachment to protect the retreat of the Republican Guard. 2,100 to 2,300, 70 T-72 tanks, 80-plus armored fighting vehicles. Obviously, it's a larger formation than us. In theory, on the board, it has more combat power than we do. It's in defensive positions, which theoretically gives it an enormous advantage. This is your sandstorm as it begins to dissipate at about 4:30 in the afternoon after we had already made our initial assault. That gives you an impression you can't see very much. Sandstorms do that. And at this point, it was an enormous sandstorm. It grounded most of the aircraft that could have otherwise flown in support of us. So we didn't have aircraft in the air at that point. We didn't really know what was in front of us, and I was prohibited from using that reconnaissance element in front. Next slide. What I had to do was shove this 1,100-man formation from its 20-kilometer zone into 10 kilometers, giving each of the lead cavalry troops 5,000 meters. And these are the men that did the fighting. And on the left, you have Ghost Troop. On the right is Eagle Troop. The man in Ghost Troop was a man named Sardiano, who won a Silver Star for his performance. The man on the right is McMaster, who won a Silver Star, but not right away, as I will explain. And the other forces were follow-on, prepared to support. We get this fragmentary order at 5:22, and you can see this is a direct quote of what we were told on the radio, to fix the mechanized division. I was very upset with this because security zones in Soviet terms are places where if you stop, you are going to die quickly, because the security zones are full of minefields. They have listening posts, observation posts, combat outposts. That's where they track your movement. That's where they want you to go. It's the wrong place to stop. So, finally we begin to move, palsy. A few kilometers and we're stopped. A few more kilometers and we're stopped. And again, it turns out that the regimental commander, the corps commander who are behind us, 10, 15, 20 kilometers behind us, are looking at a J-STARS picture and trying to figure out, based upon what they think they know about the enemy, where the enemy is, to push us just up close enough to engage the enemy with long-range fires, but not close enough that we will have a battle. Interesting. So I say on the way, finally in frustration, I turn to another young officer, a captain, very fine officer, who's now a general. His name was Iardi, who's also from Philadelphia. Almost everybody in the squadron was. That's where I'm from. And I said very slowly to him, be careful what you report to Dragoon, in other words, the regiment. Be careful what you tell them. Be accurate, but don't give them an excuse to stop us. And I said that because I wanted everybody to know that when we hit the enemy, we're not stopping. Next slide. Thus begins the great battle of the 73 Easting, a grid line in an empty desert that runs north to south because there was nothing else out there to call it. And we start over here back into 5-0, and we end up going up towards the 73. We halt along the way. We're finally told to go no further than the 7-0. Initially they say the 6-9, then the 7-0. But you know what happens? We meet the enemy along the way, and when that happens, you gotta fight. And we did. And the first big fight comes on the right flank. And remember that you could not see from here to here. You had to have a coherent picture in your mind of where people were based on the formations and the battle drills that you had practiced. There were no electronics to tell you anything. So these were trained professional combat troops. Otherwise, this wouldn't have worked. And you had mines spread through here in the Soviet fashion, not very well established minefields, but they were there, with lots of combat outposts. And Eagle Troop on the right flank is the first to hit a major concentration. And he immediately attacks with his tanks, he at the center of them to the right, smashes into this concentration of combat power. 29 T-72s, 2 T-55s, and so forth. And remember, the visibility wasn't very good. He is on my right, I'm on the left with him because I made him the main attack, and I'm trying to keep one eye on Ghost Troop over here and understand what they're doing. All of a sudden, I look over to Eagle 6's tank, McMaster, and I see this explosion in the sand. Well, we had been going through lots of artillery, so at first I thought it's just not an artillery round, you know. Artillery doesn't have much effect on armored forces. You just drive through it. But then, you know, I saw another one, and finally my gunner says, "Oh, sir, holy shit, look at this." And he swings the gun around, he's got his thermal sights, and